If you are in the top 25% of earners in Britain, you probably have a quiet confession to make. You don't feel rich. You feel like a fraud in a nice postcode. You look at the number on your payslip, then you look at what is actually left in your account on the 28th of the month, and the two things simply refuse to match. Welcome to the squeezed middle. This is the exact percentile where the seductive maths of a high income runs straight into a brick wall of British fixed costs. So let's do something uncomfortable together. Let's find out precisely what it takes to reach the top quarter of this country in 2026, and why arriving there feels nothing at all like the promise you were sold. Let's start with the line itself. To sit in the top 25% of UK households, you need a combined gross income of roughly £72,000. That is typically two people, both working, pooling everything they bring in. Strip it right down to a single individual, and the threshold sits closer to £48,000. Read that again slowly, because it is the first real shock of this video. Just under £50,000 a year, a salary most people in this country would call a genuine, hard-won success, quietly places one single Briton inside the top quarter of all earners. The bar is lower than almost anyone assumes, which raises the obvious and slightly painful question. If the bar is really that low, then why on earth does clearing it feel so relentlessly hard? The answer begins with four little letters: HMRC. Because gross is an illusion. It is a headline number, engineered to make you feel wealthy for a fraction of a second, before the state quietly steps in and takes its share. So let's run the tape on a single earner bringing home that full £72,000. First comes the personal allowance. The first £12,570 arrives completely tax-free. After that, the basic rate bites at 20%, and the moment you cross £50,270, you are dragged into the higher rate band, where you hand over 40 pence of every single extra pound you earn. Then stack national insurance on top of all of it. By the time the dust settles, this so-called top-tier earner loses nearly £20,000 to income tax and national insurance combined, and walks away with a take-home of somewhere around £52,000. The headline said 72. The reality said 52. And here is the genuine cruelty baked into the system: fiscal drag. Those tax thresholds have been frozen since 2021, and they are locked in place until at least 2028. Your salary climbs with inflation year after year, but the bands never move an inch. So every pay rise you celebrate quietly shoves more of your money up into a higher bracket. You feel richer on paper and poorer in the bank at the very same time. That is fiscal drag, and it is doing more to strangle this particular quarter of the country than any headline tax rise a chancellor has ever dared to announce out loud. Now let's actually spend what is left, because this is where the top 25% fantasy truly falls apart. Take the mortgage first. A modest 3-bedroom, semi-detached, the spiritual home of the British middle class, financed at today's roughly 5% interest rates, cost this household around £1,500 a month, every single month, for decades. Then comes the council tax. People treat it as a footnote on a letter they never read, but in many boroughs, the annual bill now sails past £2,500. That is a hidden tax that lands like a second, smaller mortgage, except this one you can never overpay, never remortgage, and never finish. Add the energy bill, hovering near £1,800 a year just to keep the lights on and the boiler ticking over through a British winter. Then the commute. A season ticket into a major city can swallow £4,000 or more annually, the plain, ruinous cost of simply existing within reach of the home counties. And for many households in this exact bracket, there is one more monster hiding in the spreadsheet: childcare. A single nursery place in the southeast can cost more per month than the mortgage itself, turning a comfortable dual income into a frantic, breathless survival exercise. Stack all of it together: the semi, the council tax, the energy, the commute, the childcare, and the wealthy household makes a grim discovery. Almost every pound of that high income was already spoken for before it ever landed in the account. But income is only half the story, and honestly, it is the less important half. Income is cash flow. It simply moves through your hands on its way to somebody else. Wealth is what you actually manage to keep. So let's pivot hard to net worth, because this is where the real dividing lines of Britain are quietly drawn. To reach the top 25% for household net worth, you need roughly £580,000, and crucially, That figure includes the equity locked inside your home and every pound sitting in your pension, your SIP, and your ISA. And this is the part almost nobody wants to hear. For a huge slice of the top quarter, that net worth is not liquid, not spendable, and not really theirs to touch. It is trapped. It is bricks you cannot eat, and a pension you cannot draw for another 30 years. You can be sitting on a £580,000 net worth and still lie awake, worrying about a broken boiler, because none of it is money you can actually reach today. The house you live in makes you a paper millionaire on the north-south divide, while your current account tells a completely different, far more anxious story. This is where things get genuinely strange. Consider a young couple in London earning £100,000 between them. Impressive income on paper. Yet they rent, they still carry student debt, and they have barely started a pension. Their true net worth might be hovering somewhere close to zero. Now consider a retired postman in a paid-off terraced house worth £300,000 with a modest workplace pension quietly behind him. He earns a fraction of that young couple's income, but his net worth utterly dwarfs theirs. This is the lesson the top quarter of the country is slowly, painfully learning. Income makes you look rich. Assets are what make you rich. It is entirely, perfectly possible to earn a fortune and own almost nothing at all. Then there is geography, the great distorting mirror of British money. That same £72,000 is not one income at all. It is many different incomes, depending entirely on where you happen to be standing when you earn it. Take it to the northeast, and it makes you genuinely, comfortably wealthy. A large house, real room to breathe, money left over at the end of the month. Now carry the identical figure into London or the wealthier corners of the home counties, and it barely stretches to comfortable. The north-south divide is not merely a line on a map, it is a purchasing power machine, capable of turning the exact same salary into either quiet abundance or low-grade, permanent anxiety. A pound simply does not mean the same thing in Newcastle as it means in Wimbledon, and no tidy national statistic will ever manage to capture that gap. So before you file yourself away under struggling, step right back and widen the lens as far as it will go, because on the global scale, the entire picture flips over completely. A top 25% British household, squeezed, mortgaged, taxed, and quietly resentful about all of it, still sits comfortably inside, roughly the top 3% of the whole world's population by income. The very costs that make you feel poor at home, the season ticket, the frozen thresholds, the eye-watering nursery fees are viewed from almost anywhere else on earth, simply the everyday texture of an extraordinarily fortunate life. Which leaves us with the real reason none of this ever feels like enough. The comparison trap. We do not measure ourselves against the bottom 50%. In truth, we never even see them. Instead, we scroll, and we compare upward, always upward, forever measuring ourselves against the top 5%, performing their wealth for us on a glowing screen, the kitchen extension, the second holiday, the new car sitting in the driveway. And so the finish line keeps sliding gently away from us, no matter how fast or how furiously we run toward it. That is the final, uncomfortable truth of the squeezed quarter. Wealth was never a fixed number you reach and hold. It is a moving target, and the very instant you hit it, someone quietly moves it again. The trick, in the end, is not to earn your way out of the feeling. It is to stop measuring your whole life against a ruler that was carefully designed from the very beginning to make you feel small. If you learned something, make sure to like and hit subscribe. See you in the next one.